marketing strategy that can never be replicated. You don't necessarily want to go viral. Don't discount. Build brand equity. There is a repetitive nature that humans are drawn to. Lots of fashion influencers do it really, really well. Now is the most critical time if you are a founder. The misconception is...
Today we're here with the founder of PEP Agency, Maria. Maria, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for coming in.
My
Really
pleasure.
excited to spotlight your business. Your business has helped my business a lot. Helped with finding the path that I really struggled with when it came to the marketing side. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what you do, the services you provide, and then we'll dive into why you got into this industry.
Okay, great. So PEP Agency, which I founded, is an identity-led marketing agency. The reason why we specialise in identity-led marketing is because we work with founders that have unique propositions, experience and products and services that create difference in their category.
Yeah.
Now, that allows us to draw out the founder's story and create a marketing strategy that can never be replicated because it is unique to the founder.
Yeah.
There's two sides to identity-led marketing. One is that, yes, the founder can be front and centre, which we've done with you. But there are also other businesses that I work with where the founders don't necessarily want to be, front and centre, all across the socials or the marketing materials, but their story very much is. Their reasoning is. Their why is, which allows us to create unique positionings. So in terms of what we deliver and the services that we deliver to a business or a founder is we work one-on-one. I only work with a select group of clients in sprints.
Yeah.
And we build out unique marketing strategies across all your marketing touch points, both digital and in person. And then we build a marketing system that allows the founder and their team to implement and drive that strategy so you get closer to the business results or goals that you're working towards.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have a really great strategy, really great tactics, because the tactics come out of the strategy, but you need to be consistent with bringing it to life. So I either have people within my team support businesses to implement that system, or I educate the business's team members to facilitate that system.
Yeah, I think the implementation is probably the most difficult that you'd find a lot of founders struggling with, just because of time. And people sometimes think, I'm just going to be posting to social media, whatever it is, and they don't find the actual usefulness in it. But when working with you, when you show the actual marketing strategy behind it, it makes you want to post or follow your guidance. So let's take it from someone who is brand new. What's your process with them? Is there a sit down? Do you go through a certain strategy? Like I know, but tell everyone.
So it very much is a sit down. It's a face-to-face conversation around what you're currently challenged with and where you want to go. It's a very casual conversation and it's very much to align with each other. It may be that we're not right for each other, but it might be that we are.
Yeah.
And if there is a sense that I know that I can solve this problem for you, we move into sign off and a discovery session. So we do a deep dive with a series of specific and strategized questions around not just the business, but what you've done in the past, what's happening in your category, what's happening beyond that, and where do you ultimately want to go? Where is the business moving towards? Or where is it being held back? Marketing very much sits in how the business is functioning or not functioning. It isn't just a fancy bells and whistles that you just add on. It helps signal what your brand needs in the marketplace. So once we've done that big discovery session, I go away and I will build out your strategy depending on how big or concise that we've agreed to work towards. then we move into working through that together and presenting that and talking through that to ensure that there is alignment.
Yeah.
And what I look for is that there is some challenge in it. The founder does feel a little challenged by it, at the very least.
Of course.
You don't want to be sitting in a lot of comfort,
Yeah.
but it needs to feel right in terms of brand.
Yeah.
And that it needs to feel right in terms of integrity to the business.
Yeah.
And then we move into, okay, do we need to educate your team in terms of how we bring this to life, or do you need additional services from PEP? And then we work together month on month or quarter on quarter to make sure that you're still kicking those goals.
People could probably start and already hear your passion behind what you do.
Thank you.
But tell me about why you chose marketing. Like, let people know who the person behind, all these plans are.
So the desire to work in marketing, advertising, creative started as a child. So I was always mesmerized by the Maya windows at Christmas time. And I always wondered, who were these very clever people creating these stories and building these worlds to life? And then I started to take notice of advertising. And as a child, I was fascinated to think, how on earth did they make that? I was fascinated. And fast forward to before starting VCE in high school, I actually sat my parents down and said, I want to leave school because I just want to work in PR. I know what I want to do and I just want to go. And they said, absolutely not. You will be going to finish year 12 and you will be going to university. I'm like, okay. But I knew what I wanted to do. So I made sure that all my VCE classes were aligned to media.
Yep.
And English and anything creative that would help that leap into the marketing world. I was very lucky that I had incredible work experience. So I got to work at the Channel 9 PR team. I got to work at the Maya Foundation as well during that, that year 10 to year 12 phase. And that, again, just lit that passion. It opened up my eyes and to a world that I was so deeply interested in.
I can just picture little Maria at the Maya windows, Christmas time, and just you looking up at it and just seeing it in amazement. That's an incredible story. I actually never heard of that before.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, so one small couple little moments can really,
absolutely. So once I jumped into uni, I studied PR, media, and comms. And I quickly realised that in order for me to succeed in this industry, it wasn't about being book smart. It was literally about getting hands-on experience.
Yeah.
So I jumped straight into the job field. I got my first full-time media job shy of being 21 years of age. And I remember I got interviewed for my first job by the managing director of a media agency called Mediacom, which will forever hold an amazing place in my heart. And the managing director said to me, quit uni now, start with us full time.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll start with you full time. I will study at night, part time, because I want to end up in London and I can't do that without a university degree.
Wow.
And so fast forward 10 years later, I ended up in London working on some incredible brand activations because I went from studying and working in PR to learning how to place media ads and media buys. So for anyone playing at home, media planning and buying is the bedrock of the advertising industry. They are the people that decide where that billboard ad is being placed or what time that television commercial is being placed and so forth. Then I moved into strategy and brand activation, so creating really bespoke brand experiences for consumers. And that's what really drove my career in the last, I'd say in the last 15 years, I'd say. It was a big part of where I drew inspiration and creativity.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then most recently I was heading up an independent creative agency in Melbourne, and so we were producing incredible television commercials, social content for a whole variety of brands, and it's incredible to be able to put all the pieces together of the advertising spectrum, going from PR, which is well, now it's more paid, but non-paid placement to paid placement to strategy to brand experiences and activations, all the way through to actually producing content and commercials that you see playing on TV. So it felt like a real full circle moment.
Yeah. So all this year of experience has led to PEP.
Yes, absolutely.
And now PEP has been born.
Absolutely. PEP is born and ready to go. We are having a lot of fun. A lot of fun. The reason why PEP exists is because I have worked on really, really big brands my whole career. National, international brands. I've identified, and I think with a lot of independent consultants, is that there's a gap in education and knowledge with SMEs around what is valuable marketing, what is valuable brand work, how do you create a strategy, instead of getting lost in the semantics and the money that gets invested and lost without having that knowledge. So first and foremost, I've always wanted to empower people that own businesses around what those nuances are when it comes to marketing. And it really isn't as complicated as what some business owners feel overwhelmed by.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, that's the biggest key with you. You kind of empower us to say our story.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing. Now, what would you say would be one of the biggest misconceptions that people might have about marketing?
That it's hard, it's complicated, and it's expensive. And that you have to run paid ads for it to work.
Straight to it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Or my favourite, that you have to discount to sell. We've had this conversation. Yeah.
This is bringing back flashbacks.
Yeah.
Do you want to dive into that a little bit more?
It comes back to the fundamentals of what we offer. And it's, even if I was to take even a bigger step back from that, humans buy from humans. Humans connect with humans because they see a piece of themselves in your business, in that brand, whether it's a current version of themselves or an aspirational version of themselves. So if you get your story and your content right and it's cohesive with what you're offering, so when someone meets your brand or product or service online and then experiences in real life and there's cohesiveness there, you've already got that customer over the line to some degree because you've connected with them from a human perspective, hence the identity-led piece, hence the founder story piece.
Yeah, so what about the actual misconception that people might think about marketing in terms of, like, before I knew what was involved, I would have just thought marketing was running an ad.
Yeah.
So what would the misconception be for like what you do compared to what people think a marketing person does?
I think people think marketing people do lots of different things. Like they think they just write ads or they, deploy ads. You've got to run ad campaigns across Meta, and when you don't have to. What you do need to do is think about what you're doing and what all those touch points are for your customer.
Yeah.
And make sure that they all speak to each other, because your customer is going through a process of elimination, essentially, to decide whether they're going to AJD or fitness first.
Yeah.
And if they connect with you, they connect with the offering, and then they have that same experience, that's what's going to get them over the line. But the misconception is that you thought that you had to run a hardcore meta campaign, spend lots and lots of money to get eyeballs on those ads to get people in the door. Eyeballs are important, and organic content, non-paid content, which has been a big focus here, does take a longer time to build equity in the brand and connection with your audience. But I would call it almost the modern day word of mouth, particularly if you're seeing that being shared or saved. Now, when we talk about ads, we talk about ads, paid ads, as an add-on to support the strategy that we've built for AJD. So the misconception is that it doesn't need to be as overcomplicated or as, financially intensive as you think it is. What it does require is you to be consistent and to be cohesive and to show up across the touch points that your customer is discovering your product or your brand with.
When it comes to marketing, what would you say would be like the percentage that would be marketing and more the psychology side of things?
I'd say it's 70% psychology, if not 80% psychology.
How do you mean?
I'll give you a really good example, actually. I don't know if you recall, there was this content creator on TikTok. It was this guy that was trying to quit soda drinks. He was in Melbourne, and it wasn't a creative execution, but it was a consistent execution. It was him innocently talking to camera every other day, every week, reporting back that he had not drunk Diet Coke or whatever, soft drink he was avoiding for the last 3 months. Now, he amassed huge following, huge engagement, because he was consistent. He was tapping into the human psychology of being curious and also loving. People love to see a hard story, or they love to see achievement because it's aspirational. When you think about any creative that you see in a television commercial, what's happening beforehand, before it even hits, the storyboards of, mapping out what's being shot, is a human truth. Everything starts with a human truth. From an ad to a content creator, it doesn't matter. So it's all about what truth are you solving, what truth are you hitting, and you're scratching an itch.
And at the end of the day, you might have the best offer, you might have the best service out there, but if you're not tapping into this psychology side of things, where you're tapping into people's emotions or curiosity, they're not going to find interest in continuing to watch your content. They're not going to find interest in actually signing up, even if you have the best offer on the planet.
Yeah.
It's a huge element of it, really tapping into that psychology part.
Absolutely.
I saw this video the other day. They were just like, it's like every follower I get, I use a spoon to try to dig out a school. And then I clicked on it, 20,000 followers.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, and he's just digging. He's just digging and digging.
It's
wild. I'm going to start digging out of the gym and see what happens.
Literally, there is a repetitive nature that humans are drawn to when it comes to, if we're specifically talking about social content. If you are consistent and repetitive in how you show up, lots of fashion influencers do it really, really well. They'll do a fit check in the same mirror or in the same room every other day. The outfit changes, but the environment doesn't. And it becomes this anchor point of content that audience is searching for. The psychology of social media is a comfort driver, and it also is a dopamine hit. So if I've connected with an influencer or a brand that I feel like I've got a parasocial relationship with, and that means I've connected with you in a way that we've never met in person, but I watch your content every other day and I actually feel like you're a friend of mine. Right? So I've connected with this fashion influencer. I feel like I have a relationship with this person. I actually don't. I've never met them in person. They live in Sydney. But they do a fit check every other day in the same environment. Now, they've come up on my feed, dopamine hit, tick.
Bang.
Consistent of like meeting what my expectations are, tick. And I'm a happy follower, and I'm going to like, because it's hit all the dials in my head.
Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. I have to say, there is this one business owner, this fashion designer. She owns this business called Capsule Wardrobe, and she's documented her whole business journey on TikTok. But she's been so consistent all the way through in terms of her aesthetic, around her environment, where she's showing up, how she shows up. She's a constant representation of her brand. So she might not always show her product, but it doesn't matter because the product exists so cohesively in how she represents her content. And she's amassed great following, and she's only been in business for 11 months. Now, from what I've seen, I haven't seen her running any paid ads, and she's selling out her collections.
Keep showing up.
Keep showing up consistently.
And all that.
Both visually, but psychologically.
Oh, I think it's really hard for people to see through that small period. Like, you know, you're pushing Instagram hard, you're not seeing the results straight away. So what are you kind of saying to people that are like, I don't know, that 1-2 months and they've been pushing every day, they're not seeing anything? Is it a matter of just keep going, it will take
Absolutely.
care?
We are living in a social first marketing environment now. So you've got greater saturation across the algorithm and across feeds. So it's never been more important to be really clear about who you are, what you stand for, and what your strategy is. There are some brands that will go viral, but you don't necessarily want to go viral because that is a one-hit wonder. You want to build equity in your content and your brand. It's playing the long game. It really is. Depending on the product, it might be a game changer product where it really does revolutionize a category, where it does harness attention and you can't look away. You've got to stick with it. You've got to keep going. It may not turn on or turn over your 10,000 followers in 2 months. That's where you might push for your organic strategy and support with paid ads. But you're never going to generate the kind of followership or engagement that you want if you don't have a strategy in place, because it's never going to make sense to your audience or to the marketplace.
Would you say the correlation would be between like a high level of influence and a high level of attention?
It's a really great question.
Thank you.
So attention truly is the new currency that brands are playing with at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, we are working within a social first economy, if you will. So brands, influencers, businesses are fighting for attention. And once you've got that attention, it builds influence. Without attention, you don't have influencers. You don't choose to follow someone if they don't have your attention.
Yeah.
Now, you can capture someone's attention by either aligning with them and building that connection, or by really triggering them and offending them to no end. So it's looking at the type of attention that you're garnering for, or you're working towards, and then ultimately that attention turns into followership and engagement that drives influence.
Yeah.
But attention is a really fickle thing because people turn it on, they turn it off, depending on where they're at in time of day, where they're at in their life, if they've decided that they don't agree with what the brand has said or positioned themselves, or the product or the pricing. Attention is an ever-evolving action and something that we are always conscious of, and that's where that creativity comes through when you're thinking about the psychology of your content or your strategy. It's like, okay, what's going to stop the scroll? And there are so many different ways of approaching it, but that consistency piece really comes through. It is a tried and tested model, and if you go through some of the biggest, most successful brands across social platforms, people are stopping the scroll. It's also the perspective that you're grabbing people from. This is why you hear about what's the audio hook, what's the visual hook. You've got to have a hook, because we are now being served tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of messages each day, not just on our devices, but in our environment. That's only ever going to increase now. So, attention is a fine currency.
Well, you're fighting for attention.
You are fighting, but ideally where you want to get to is that you're not fighting for it. You're commanding it, and you're stopping that scroll essentially. And I know that we're talking specifically about social. It does come through in the digital interface of your website as well. How do you maintain that attention from seeing your organic or ad post across social or digital platforms? How do you keep that cohesive and that attention locked in so that web experience is really seamless? So that payment system is really seamless.
Yeah.
And that's where we see, Apple Pay being such an interesting tool for businesses at the moment, that you've got such a seamless digital experience from seeing a product on your TikTok or your Instagram, going straight to a landing page that only specifically talks to that product, and making that payment process literally 2 clicks of a button.
As soon as you have to pull out your credit card,
you've lost attention.
You could lose that sale.
You have lost attention. You've lost attention to the second screen, that's the iPad or the TV, or you've lost attention somewhere else that person is being called to.
So involved in the marketing, you're going to have your strategy, but is there any testing that you do either involved in the strategy or outside of the strategy?
Absolutely. So the strategy itself, when it's being built, is built like a blueprint, an informed hypothesis, essentially to say if we do A, B, C and D, it should equate to E.
Yeah.
But with anything that is planned or assumed through data and insights, which is a very big part of building strategies, is that we need to test it in the real world. And that's why, as I mentioned earlier, we do monthly or quarterly optimization meetings with our clients to see how their benchmarks are tracking across their marketing, and if they're hitting their goals, and if they're not, why. And that's where we move into, say, A/B testing when it comes to creative or messaging from a paid ad perspective. We also do real world pressure testing with focus groups to say, if we were to take path X with this brand, what would that mean to you? And it's also looking at deploying different tactics to see what really resonates with your audience. Are they more interested in a webinar than doing a meetup as a community? Like what makes this audience tick? What makes them drawn to this product? And then what you do is you take these learnings. You keep taking these learnings and you keep optimizing. There is some pushback with that ideology of always optimizing, because when you're so focused on the optimization, you can lose sight of where you're going, and you can get so lost in the data and insights that you lose that creativity that naturally comes from pumping out a marketing campaign or pumping out your content. And so there definitely needs to be a balance of in between. So at the end of the day, you can be so invested in the data and insights, but lose sight that there's still humans on the other side of this.
Yeah.
And we are complicated creatures. And sometimes it just doesn't make sense why things work. But ideally, what we're creating for our clients is guardrails to be really clear on how they're showing up to their audience across all those touch points.
Yeah, I think those guardrails are important. Like, there's a very likely chance there's not going to be anything that can tell you exactly what's going to work. It's just a matter about you've got the tools and you've got the skills that can analyze, review, and then make educated decisions based on outcomes.
Exactly. And there will be, we've had clients come through and it's been very clear around what needs to shift to drive that outcome. Like there are very clear tactics that we use to drive outcomes. Absolutely.
Something that you'd probably be able to see, but like invisible to a general person.
Absolutely. Also, by having that strategy and using those optimization meetings, the strategy allows you to make better decisions, better informed decisions as you move through. So ideally, month on month, you're seeing results come through.
Now, you've been helping me a lot with my personal brand and trying to build a bit of a brand authority. What does real brand authority look like?
Real brand authority looks like, in the real world, how you show up digitally and how you show up in the real world aligns. You are that person online and in person. So I do a lot of this work. We've gone deep with this in terms of your personal brand, and I work with a lot of founders to really develop and strategize their personal brand to signal to the world and their category who they are, what they stand for, and what their business, product or service stands for. And what that does is we are able to bring authenticity, very much so. I know it's an overused term, but we are bringing human truth. We are bringing difference into how we position and advertise and market your business. And it comes from your story as a founder and how you show up and where you're going personally with this business and where you're taking it. When we work on a founder's personal brand, we're able to really build that parasocial relationship with their target audience, but also signal authority to other business leaders or parallel business leaders that you want to connect with and network with and potentially build other pathways of revenue with. It is the quickest and strongest way to signal your authority without having to go to 20 different networking events. So I am a firm believer in personal brand. I'm a firm believer that now is the most critical time if you are a founder to be considering how you're showing up as a founder. So you're not just a person as a founder. You are a brand. You are the brand, and you need to show up and think about that in that way.
It's a really good insight because I think, it's easily dismissed, but with your knowledge and education, we've been able to, really just start that journey. Some days, might get a little more challenging to keep showing up, but like you said, time, consistency, it'll pay off.
Absolutely. And it's how you differentiate yourself, both with your peers and the target audience that you're looking to engage with. And it builds further equity within your business.
Yeah.
Because say you are a founder-led business and you are providing a service to a customer, that customer is experiencing you digitally. And when they meet you and you are the same person, it builds authority. It lands authority immediately. And then half the sales process is done.
That's true.
So that's why I say, don't discount. Build brand equity. Build your personal brand equity. Invest the time. Get a marketing system into your business that allows you to show up 24/7 across all your digital touch points. So when someone stumbles across you and you trigger that piece in their brain that you're being consistent and visually it makes sense to them and the message makes sense to them, they create that connection with you. They buy into what you're selling because they believe in your story, they believe in your conviction, and they love just seeing you because there's a part of you that inspires them or sees a part of themselves. Before you know it, they're walking through your door or they're DMing you or they're just buying your product.
What is one piece of advice you'd give to someone who is launching their brand today?
Come talk to me. That's what I tell them.
Get some pep in your step.
Get some pep in your step and let's have a chat. That's what I would be saying.
Yeah.
At the very least, though, in all seriousness, no, I am really serious. Come and have a chat. Is I'd be really clear on what you're offering and what you're wanting to achieve.
Yeah.
So looking at the parallel of what that looks like, but building a pathway, building a strategy, building a plan. Don't just post once and wait for another 3 months. Think about your customer journey. Think about where you exist in your customer's life and where you show up in that process.
Amazing. That's a great advice to be taken away. If anyone's going to listen to any of that part, like that was key. And you've helped me a lot, and you're still helping me with a lot. You know, sometimes you're very patient with me sometimes, but you know, I appreciate all the help that you do provide. We wouldn't know what we know without you. So, Maria, thank you for coming on today and sharing us a little bit about PEP, sharing us a little bit about insights with marketing. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. It truly was a pleasure.
If you found value in what you saw today, be sure to follow along for the remainder of our 30 in 30 series. And if you want to support this business, check out their details below.